What does failure look like for you? Because you try and you create and you put out so much stuff. How have you gotten to a place where you still trust, even in the face of stuff that hasn't worked out?
I look back at my life and I've redefined that. Like, I don't see any failure because everything that I've gone through was perfect for where I was going. Every door that was closed, every time the show didn't work out, nobody showed up, all of that was preparing me for this moment. And what I tell people about a closed door, for me in my life, a closed door was like when that door closed, it was like the wall of a maze coming in, which meant go another way and figure it out. And all of that for me has brought me to this place, man. I can't even begin to take it all in sometimes because it's all been so incredible.
How have you clung to Jesus throughout all this?
My mother this is the thing I tell parents, like, if my mother wouldn't have took me to church and taught me about God and taught me about faith, if I wouldn't have seen her up there smiling when I know the hell we just went through in the house on Friday and Saturday night, seeing her in the choir Sunday morning singing, praising God, if I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't know how to deal in trouble. But because she prayed her way through, because she taught me to pray, because she took me to church all the time, that childhood thing, when the Bible says, when they're old, they won't depart. Yeah. Listen, it's in me.
Maxine.
Yeah, Maxine, it's in me. And no matter how much I have, no matter how much I get, nothing gives me the comfort and security of what I know to be, I feel when I'm praying and talking to God. That no amount of money can do that. No people, no entourage. That for me is the epitome of my whole life's focus and goal. If you take that away from me, you can have it all.
What's the scripture around your house that's engraved?
Psalms 91. Yeah, Psalms 91. It's in the capstone of the house, and it's so subtle. Most people miss it. Yeah. But if you're looking closely, you see it, and it starts at the front door, and it's the capstone all the way around the house. Yeah.
Psalm 91, all around.
Yeah, one of my favorite Psalms. One of my favorite Psalms just because of the power of what it speaks over your life, being under the shadow of the Almighty, and 1,000 falling by your side and 10,000 at your hand, but it will never come near your dwelling place. All of those, all of the verses in that scripture, each one of them speak to me. I will keep you in all of your ways. You will not dash your feet against a stone. It's just all of those things are just powerful.
Hey y'all, welcome to this episode of Lights On. So grateful that you're here. And as you know, Lights On is sponsored by Betterhelp. And if you don't know much about Betterhelp, I wanted to take an extra second today before you listen to this episode, which I know is a lesson, and just ask you, who's helping you? One of the first things I do when I talk to people who want to change and want to get better is I say, where are you going for help? And a lot of people don't know where to go. Betterhelp is here for that exact reason. I encourage you to take that one step and contact them and see what's there for you. If you tried therapy, try again. If you never have, this is your time. And if you go to betterhelp.com/lightson, you get 10% off your first month. It's a really cool opportunity. So enjoy this episode. I just wanted to make sure you understand that your life is worth help. You're worth support, and you're worth getting some clarity, some stuff that might be weighing you down. So enjoy this episode and check out BetterHelp if you haven't yet. Lights on. Enjoy.
Play the B-side.
You got the A-side of life and the B-side of life.
What's on the B-side? All of it.
B-side's got some banging Sousa deep cuts.
B-side, come on.
Need it for the B-side.
On the B-side.
So.
What's this really about?
Every human on earth is fully seen, fully heard, fully known, fully loved, even if they're not fully agreed with.
I see you. I see you. I see you.
I see you.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
I hear you. I hear you, pal. I hear you.
I know you. I know you.
I know you.
I know you.
I love you just the way you are.
You are loved.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Eddie, even if you don't agree.
Even if you don't agree with it.
I'm a piping hot mess.
Sheesh. Keep it real.
I guess keep it real. Courage, vulnerability.
You're vulnerable.
It's only vulnerability.
I would normalize it, but it's weird.
That's not normal, is it? Totally normal.
It's actually not weird. It's actually super normal.
Vulnerable.
So that's what this is really all about.
Tyler Perry,
Carl Lentz.
Lights On podcast.
Lights on, man. Turn them all on.
Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you'd reach this point to be on my pod?
How far I've come.
I mean,
How far I've come.
there's so much about you that has impacted a lot of people, and it's an honor to be sitting here in your house. Okay, so if we trace if the 10-year-old Tyler, if we trace your life back to
Why did you choose 10 years old?
I don't know, just random.
No, it's not random.
Okay, well then God must put it on my heart. But let's go 10-year-old Tyler.
Yeah.
He's looking out at the world. From where you sit today, did you see this in your mind? When you're 10, are you thinking the world is mine to take and to impact?
No. I thought my son just turned 10, so when you say 10, it's that's what I thought. Because I was just talking to somebody about me being 10 years old and what that meant. No, I didn't see all of this. I did have hope though, because my mother would take me to church all the time, and my uncle was the pastor, and he'd preach about God and faith and believing and trusting and what God would do if you pray. So by that time, God had answered a huge prayer for me, because I thought the people in the television were real earlier on than 10, but I thought they were real. And if I opened the back of the television, I could take the people out, but I know my father would kill me if I did that. And my uncle would be preaching about, God's going to answer your prayer, God's going to answer your prayer. So I prayed in church, God, send me some little people to take care of, and like the ones on the TV. And I thought, okay, I'm going to wait for God to answer my prayer. I come home from school one day, and the lady across the street is leaving town. They're moving to California, and she'd asked my mother if I could take care of the parakeets. That she had 2 parakeets, Fifi and Pierre, who spoke. And I thought God had answered my prayer. So that's early on. So by the time I was 10, I was really believing that I could have some amazing things, but I couldn't see any of this. Of course not. I couldn't see this then. This took being exposed to the ability that it's possible. Yeah.
How over the years have you processed not failure, but just challenge in the middle of the road? Like, because I have the privilege of knowing kind of some of the ins and the outs, but to get here at a place where you're able to impact and influence, you had to go through a lot of shut doors, no barriers that are, obvious in life. What does that mean for you? What does failure look like for you? Because you try and you create and you put out so much stuff. How have you gotten to a place where you still trust, even in the face of stuff that hasn't worked out?
Yeah, when you say that, like people ask me, Tyler, when you failed, I look back at my life and I've redefined that. Like, I don't see any failure, because everything that I've gone through was perfect for where I was going. Every door that was closed, every time the show didn't work out, nobody showed up, all of that was preparing me for this moment. And what I tell people about a closed door, for me in my life, a closed door was like when that door closed, it was like the wall of a maze coming in, which meant go another way and figure it out. And all of that for me has brought me to this place, man. I can't even begin to take it all in sometimes, because it's all been so incredible. Yeah.
We're going to talk about the movie that you are currently talking about all over the place, that I just completely hijacked your press tour to just
the 6
trespass on your property.
Which I should have gotten you to watch before you started here. I could have did that today.
I feel like you've been telling me about it for long enough for me to kind of feel like I get an idea. But for people who don't know what you've done in Atlanta alone, when it comes to the number of people that you've employed, and even where your studio is, I've tried to talk you into making it a tour, because if people get to see it, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. But for those who don't know, can you just tell quickly the origin story of the land that you bought, which is now currently either the first or the second biggest studio in America?
It's Fort McPherson Army Base, and I didn't know the history of the base when I bought it. It's 337. I just bought 30 more acres, so 367 acres there in Atlanta. All the sound stages are there, but the history that really moved me when I really leaned in and found out was that it was once a Confederate Army base. So to own property that was once a place where Confederate soldiers were plotting and planning to keep 3.9 million Negroes enslaved to be owned by me, I think that's really, really shows not only how far we've come, but also the power of America. You know, I don't know another country where something like that can happen. So I just love that this country can give you so much hope and so much grace if you work and grind it out.
Yeah. That's a very diplomatic way of describing that, and it's true. I've also heard you. I think I said to you one time, it's the ultimate mic drop for whatever that person thought that base was going to be. To be sitting here today, that a black man has not only owned your land but built a place of hope. It's pretty beautiful.
For many, many, many other people. Yeah, a lot of black people, coming to work there. Yeah, for sure.
How, this is something, and Laura, by the way, says hello.
Hey, Laura.
Loves you. We were talking about.
Yeah, of course, we love Laura.
Talking to you about anything is fun and fascinating. But my question is, how on earth do you remain kind and generous with all of this stuff around you? Because it just doesn't happen. And here's how I've described you before. I said to somebody, Tyler's who we wish we would all be if we had resource that was powerful. Because we all think, man, someday I'm going to be really generous. Like if I get this, or if I can do that, I would help my friends out. I would do this. You do it. You actually live kind and generous, and you will not allow me to talk about a lot of the stuff that you don't get credit for. But from the number of kids you put into college that nobody will ever know, for the number of families that you have no reason to be as generous and kind as you are, but you are. In fact, you have reason to not be. Like if you get burnt or used or manipulated enough times, you just change. But I'm sitting across from a man that I know. You're kind and generous. How do we do that? How do you get to a place where that isn't sucked out of you being in Hollywood this long?
Well, first of all, I don't know how not to do it. That's like asking me, how do you not be black? You know, it's in me. It is a part of me. My mother was a giver, and she taught me about giving. She taught me about kindness. She taught me about the power of that. And I remember being 5 years old, I'd get my money for Christmas, and by the time I got to the Woolworths to get toys, I would have given it out to all the people who were asking for money on the street. So that's something that is clearly in me, but also, you talk about holding on to it. That can be a challenge, because when you've been burned, when you've been lied on, when you've been misused, when you know the truth of what really happened, and people are trying to manipulate that into foolishness, and when you know how much you've given them, that can be a challenge. But the more people kind of like, oh, you owe me, or after I've done so many things for them, right, the more I lean into who else can I help? Because what I found,
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, what I found though is strangers who I never meet have a lot more appreciation than people that are family. So I like to do a lot of things for people that don't even know it's me.
Yeah. I remember one time getting an Uber ride to the studio to meet you, and I couldn't get in, and I had to literally call the sweet security guy at the desk. I was like, I promise you I'm here to see Tyler. He's like, well, unless you're going to call Tyler, I can't let you in. I was like, all right, man, at a FaceTime. But the Uber driver was shaking in a beautiful way. Like, I can't believe that I just heard Tyler's voice. And I think that kind of impact is impossible to create if it's not genuine. When you walk around Atlanta, you walk around spaces with people that know you, you just can't survive this long. It's not really who you are. How have you clung to Jesus throughout all this? Because I know your faith is deep.
Yeah.
You haven't had the privilege. You haven't had the option to be in a church community due to some of the trappings of fame. It's hard to find people you can trust and be genuine with, and sometimes those are the ways we stay focused on Jesus: community, other people helping us out. But you've had to cut your own road. How have you kept your relationship with God uncluttered? Like, how does that happen?
First of all, the uncluttered is the word. For me, my mother would. This is the thing that I tell parents, like, if my mother wouldn't have took me to church and taught me about God and taught me about faith, if I wouldn't have seen her up there smiling when I know the hell we just went through in the house on Friday and Saturday night, seeing her in the choir Sunday morning singing, praising God, if I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't know how to deal in trouble. But because she prayed her way through, because she taught me to pray, because she took me to church all the time, that childhood thing, when the Bible says, when they're old, they won't depart. Yeah. Listen, it's in me.
Maxine.
Yeah, Maxine, it's in me. And no matter how much I have, no matter how much I get, nothing gives me the comfort and security of what I know to be, I feel when I'm praying and talking to God. That no amount of money can do that. No people, no entourage. That for me is the epitome of my whole life's focus and goal. If you take that away from me, you can have it all. I mean that.
Yeah. I'll take it all if you're giving it. I know that's not what you meant.
I'm not giving it. I said, if you can take God away from me, you can have it all. And you can't.
You have a beautiful
place. And I'm not giving it to you.
You have a beautiful average house in Atlanta, but you also built a chapel in there, and it's one of the most beautiful atmospheres. And I think it's pretty awesome that you built a place. It's almost a throwback, like a relic to when church was simpler, stained glass, whatever. And I think that's reflective of you.
I pray every day, every morning. Every morning, go up.
What's the scripture around your house that's engraved?
Psalms 91. Yeah, Psalms 91. It's in the capstone of the house, and it's so subtle. Most people miss it. Yeah. But if you're looking closely, you see it, and it starts at the front door, and it's the capstone all the way around the house. Yeah. Yeah.
Psalm 91 all around.
Yeah, one of my favorite psalms. One of my favorite psalms, just because of the power of what it speaks over your life, being under the shadow of the Almighty, and 1,000 falling by your side, and 10,000 at your hand, but it'll never come near your dwelling place. All of those, all of the verses in that scripture, each one of them speak to me. I would keep you in all of your ways. When I dash your feet against the stone, it's just all of those things are just powerful to me.
Isn't it funny when you go through something and a psalm suddenly matters so much more?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if there's nothing clamping at your feet, that doesn't mean as much. Yeah. But like for me, Psalm 23, I walked through the valley of the shadow of death. I used to preach that thing. Yeah. And then I walked through one.
Yeah, and that's a different thing.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah.
The way it reads to me feels different. That's a beautiful part. The beautiful part of.
There's another one for me that every day I'm leaning into. It's 37:3, Psalms 37:3. Trust God and do good. Just that simple. And when I'm stressed or in opposition or dealing with something, and I don't want to be nice, it's like trust God and do good.
Trust
and I live
God
by
and do
it.
good.
Yeah, live by it. Yeah.
Trust God and do good. I know I mentioned your mom. I know this is a time where it's heavy on your heart, 15.
Man, I do nothing this time of year. If I wasn't out promoting 688, I wouldn't, because I last night was really, really difficult. I was I was being honored at the Pele Center, and when I got to the carpet to do the press line, I know the time of year it is. I know how difficult it is for me. I know that I'm feeling my mother really close. And one of the journalists pulls up a photo and says, "Hey, when you see this, what do you think?" And it's a picture of me at 5 years old on a blanket in the backyard. And when I saw it, all I remember was my mother with the Polaroid taking the picture. And I just I lost it, man. I couldn't even finish the press line. And I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. Because what I found about grief is it will show up on its own without a schedule. You can't schedule it. It's going to be there. And after 15 years to still have that moment and still be so lost that I couldn't find my footing at 55 years old on a press line with hundreds of photographers and cameras, and I couldn't get myself together, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Grief needs no invitation.
Yeah, that's right.
I appreciate you carrying that and doing this. When you tell me one thing, one thing that your mom drilled into you that as we sit here today, you might do that thing or think that certain thing and you think, that's my mama. What is that?
There's so many. The thing about her is her laughter. Like I could, like when I'm laughing sometimes, I'm laughing so hard, I hear her laughing. Like, and we didn't have a bunch of great times. So to see her and hear her laughter in the house, or to hear Betty Wright playing on the stereo, I thought, okay, this is really a good day. But I think the thing she taught me more than anything is that shit's gonna happen. Shit's gonna happen. Live, live, and that's where I am. Especially at 55, man. I'm at a different place. It's just like 55 hits different. Everything's hitting different for me right now, because these past 15 years, I was 40, like seemed like yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And now in 15 years, I'll be 70. Like, what does that look like?
You better get started. You better do something with your life.
Do something with my
Lord,
life.
Jesus,
that's right.
help
that's
this
right.
man.
Yeah, that's right.
Limited time for you.
That's right. That's right. Well, you say that, but I that's what I feel.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of success or business or things like that, or helping other people, because I've got that covered.
Yeah.
But for myself, what does that look like the next 15 years of my life? What does that look like? What does that look like personally and privately? So I'm leaning into that.
I think one burning question is like, why aren't there more white people in your productions? Is the future, I mean, can we fit somebody in, or what's going to go on with that?
I think that
a lot of black people in your stuff. Man.
Yeah. And I think that the question that you just raised is probably because you're white.
Hey, man, there's no reason to get offensive. There's no reason to say
Carl,
it with spite.
Stop it.
I just want to know, when am I going to see a Tyler Perry production
with all white
some
people?
of my people in it, with some representation? You know what time it is in culture right now? I'm going to stick some DEI police up on the Tyler Perry studios and let them know what time it is. I don't see any white people on this cast right now.
Are we done yet?
And I'm sick of it.
Did this just
Do you know
start?
how long
It
we've
seems
been
like
held
it's been
down?
a long time.
Do you know how long we've been trying to break through in
Carl,
Hollywood?
stop it.
There's always these gatekeepers. It's
Stop
like,
it.
you know, when we went through, you know, a time in our life that was just impossible to understand to a degree, and confusing and scary, you know, you stuck by me and my family. And, you know, public thanks can't, you know, will never equate the private diligence and sacrifice of standing with somebody. But my family would not be where we are without you caring. And I was talking to Laura today about how it always makes us laugh, because you have no business helping, you know, a random family. You have a lot going on, but you told me one day, you said, because after a while, you're really terrible to be friends with as well, because there's no ratio. So it's like, if I give you some shoes, you're like, well, here's a factory. It's annoying. I get sick of it. It's like, I've flown on a plane before. That's cool. Through one of my airports? No, Tyler, I don't have an airport.
Stop it.
But for the level of things you've done, thanks, it's still required. So I wanted to thank you for doing that. And what we found was, when you go through a crisis moment where you are, to a degree, ostracized or shunned, you find that people, they might give you some prayers, some thoughts. Some people might even give you resource. But what they won't give you is time. I'm not talking about like as in time to grow what you need, but I'm talking about their personal time. And what stands out to me about that moment in that chapter is in that time, I had never felt this sting of people legitimately saying, I disapprove of you so much, you're not worth my time. They're not saying that, but that's what we say. When you pull back from someone, you're saying, my time, I'm not going to spend it with you. And it was just never lost on me that you spent time with my family and I. Laura said, you were the reason why she gave me a chance, talking to you. And you were there for her. You were there for my family. Thank you for doing that. I don't know where that comes from, but I said to you one time, I'm tired of not being able to pay you back for anything. And you said, you can release yourself of that burden, because I'm doing what God told me to do.
Yeah.
Can you share about that? Because it's a very powerful mechanism, but it just changed my view on it, because you're like, this isn't even about you.
Yeah.
It's not even about that. I'm doing what God told me to do.
Here's what I found. And I say this in all humility. Like, I'm Tyler Perry, in the sense of, it's kind of hard to get to me. So if somebody breaks through, that's clearly somebody I'm supposed to pay attention to. From the time I first saw you and preach and met Laura, and that whole night was pretty like, okay, what's happening? You know, when we were staying at the same hotel, going back to the same city, you know, got a chance to sit and talk, and so I knew that was bigger than just a moment. I didn't know what it was for or what was coming. You know, when you invited me to Australia, and I met your friends and went to Hillsong, and just I was constantly telling you the truth, and you were like, no, you really. I'm like, well, here's what I feel.
Hold on. I will just, that's a very kind way. You read spades like spades. So for context, we asked Tyler, I said, come to Australia, come to conference, check it out, see what this whole thing's about. And you did. And about 15 different times throughout the course of 3 days, you were like, hey, man. I'm like, Tyler, you just don't get it yet. You don't get it. And you kept saying, you do that thing, that little smile. You're like, I definitely get it. But okay.
Yeah. And listen, I'm a church kid. Been going to church all my life. And I got there, and the worship was beautiful, and the people who were singing were sincere. But the spirit of what I was feeling wasn't something that I was comfortable with. And I made that clear to you. Even meeting some of your friends, I told you what I really felt. And I think that level of understanding and seeing had me more open to being there if something happened when it did with you and Laura and the whole church. Yeah.
Well, you're an incredible friend, and you know, I'm grateful I get to know that part of who you are.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
It's special.
You've got some work to do, but you'll get there.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
You know,
as a friend, he kind of sucks sometimes, but
you're
getting there. You're getting better. You're getting better.
You know, I think one of the parts of our relationship especially over the past 4 years, as I've tried to recover and then rebuild and reload, it's just learn how to accept yourself. And can you speak to that? Because you're really good at it. And I know you would never say you've reached a destination, but you were, even before some of the heavy therapy that I got, some of those concepts you introduced me to, just, I mean, as simple as being kind to yourself, but rather than trying to rage and run, sometimes it's just, now let me get to know this person.
Yeah.
Like can you speak to that? Because it's something that's an innate gift for you, but.
Yeah, I hear you say that. And a part of what I found being a writer is that every character has a motivation. So every time I would write something, I'd have to ask myself, why did this character say that? Why did they do this? So every little detail, there was a motivation.
Yeah.
And I apply that to myself. Like, why do you feel that way? Why did that make you angry? Why did that make you upset? Why? So that was my own therapy.
I didn't know that. That's an interesting take. Yeah.
Finding my own motivation. And even when I'm talking to friends, I'm trying to get them to find the motivation for their behavior.
Yeah.
And usually what we do is when we get into these things, we find that there's some sort of trigger or trauma or something in the past. And that's what it was for me. So that's how I think that I was able to have a clearer opinion of what I was seeing, a clearer understanding, because every actor, every scene has a motivation.
In another world, you would have been like an old school evangelical prophet, the guy who could come into a service and read people's mail. You have a ridiculously accurate prophetic ability to just to read people, and it's weird. It's awesome, but you're not the guy to bring a bunch of facades around.
That's why Australia wasn't good for me. Yeah, I'm looking right through it. It doesn't work for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody around me. I'm looking at your heart. What are you trying to show me? I'm seeing your heart. Yeah. And I thank God for that gift of discerning. It's been a blessing, but it's also been a challenge in the sense where sometimes I'm talking to people and I'm saying things I don't want to see. Yeah.
And you know that I'm not going to be in relationship with this person much longer, but they don't know it yet.
Exactly.
You've already seen who they are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And also trusting yourself enough to see it through.
Right.
Like, I know this is not going to be good, but let me see this through, because it's obviously something that I need to learn from it. I mean, Jesus had 12.
Yeah.
He knew who Judas was the whole time.
Yeah. I think you've also been strong and secure enough to never tell somebody what to do.
No.
Even in those moments, I look back, and there was a huge chapter of Hillsong that was amazing that I love, but you happened to come at a year where I felt some stuff shifting. And you never told me, hey, man, A, B, and C. You just were like, do you see this? Do you feel that? Are you understanding this? And I just kept going, he doesn't get it yet. But that ability to lay out the way to think for people is a beautiful gift.
Yeah, for you to think for yourself, just to point it out, or just, okay, I see what you're doing, I see where you're trying to go with it, but are you sure this is what is best for you? And I would never tell you, oh, you should do this, or you should think that, or you should know. Just like, let's look at the facts.
Yeah.
I'm a factual person. Let's look at the facts and see where the facts lead.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for our faith in that regard too. As far as we have people who are trying to tell people how to live and how they should feel and what they should read. And often it comes from churches, whereas I think the biblical true model, which you live, other people I know live, which is, I'm not going to tell you what to think, but I'm going to try to give you a healthy framework for how to think better.
How to think better.
If you tell me about me, it's powerful.
Yeah.
But if I get the revelation for myself,
right,
that's what brings some transformation.
Exactly right, and that's the way I am with my son. It's like, I'm not going to give him every answer.
Right.
I want to help him discover the answer. So I think that's the way it should be in life, and I think that's the way God is with all of His children. Like, I'm not going to just lay the answer in front of you.
Right.
Well, sometimes He does, but other times it's just like, let's peel this onion back so you can get to the layers that are going to lead you to the truth and to the answer.
Yeah, I love that. And tell me this: when you talk to young dreamers, I'll bet you, I would assume that it wouldn't be hollow, but when people are like, what do you have to do to be able to do A, B, and C? Now, I've been around you when you're writing. Yeah. It's weirdly obsessive and all-encompassing. I don't think people know how hard people like you work. When I say like you, people who are at the top of any sort of field, sometimes people are like, I want to do that. I'm like, I'm not sure you understand the cost.
Yeah,
like you don't, the ability to write multiple shows, multiple movies, oversee different scripts, build casts. Like, do you not scoff, but do you smile when people are like, oh, what can I do to get where you are? Like, do you often wonder, I don't think this person's willing to pay the cost of this kind of hard work? Because it has cost you a lot.
It has cost me a lot. And I look at not all of this younger generation, but a lot of them who think that this Instagram world is instant, you get it right away. It doesn't work that way. It was 7 years of me having no one in the audience before the show took off, but I had this dogged tenacity to keep going. So when people say that, the one I hate the most, I want to be the next you. No, I got that covered. You can't be the next me. I've done Tyler Perry better than anybody can do it. I
have an actual son, by the way.
Yeah, right. And I have done Tyler Perry as God intended me to build this Tyler Perry brand. But you can be the best you. Yeah. But often people don't want to make the sacrifices. They don't want to go through the pains of being the boss. My father would build houses, and he was the subcontractor. He'd get $800, and he'd come home. He'd be so happy it made $800. But then I watched the man who owned the house sell it for $80,000. Well, it took a lot to be the man who owned the house, but I always wanted to be the man who owned the house. But people have to be careful what they ask for and what they pray for, because the challenge to get there can be daunting.
And then the ability to manage it when you get there.
Yeah,
is
hold the
equally as
space.
daunting.
Hold the space. Yeah, hold the space. I know a lot of people have made it, but it's been difficult holding the space. So to hold the space is probably more of a trying than actually climbing to the space. Yeah.
And I think that's true in a lot of different ways. Yeah. If you can't hold the space you're currently in, maybe redirect a prayer from God, give me more, to God, give me wisdom to manage this thing.
Yeah.
Because if you get what you pray for, sometimes it would kill you.
Yeah.
It would crush you.
Oh God, I thank God I didn't get wealth until I was old enough to understand it. If I had been 20, man, I would probably be in prison right now for something stupid. But it came at a time when I was ready to understand it and what it meant and how to use it.
What's the biggest shift been from going from nothing out of Louisiana, these are where the roots go, to having the ability to move freely financially? What's wealth taught you?
When I first started, it was all about taking care of my mother. And no matter how much money I'd made, it wasn't enough. I thought I needed way more because of what we were going through. It was crazy, the amount of money that I was making. But I would look at it and go, no, she's sick. I got to have it. Even when I told her she could retire, she was only making about $500 every 2 weeks. It blew my mind that I was in this mentality of it's not enough to make sure she's okay. But I think the biggest obstacle for me, the biggest pain in the realization was, I thought if I worked hard, made money, and got to a certain place and certain status in life, I would be safe from all the things that I was going through. But to get to the wealth and get to that place and realize I'm not safe, I'm a target because I have it, that was a realization of going, gee, I was trying to get here to be safe, but no, brother, this isn't a safe place either.
More exposure.
Yeah, more exposure, yeah. More of a target, more opportunities to be taken advantage of and misused and abused.
So could we say that wealth has taught you that it's complicated?
Yeah, wealth has taught me it's a fantastic, incredible thing to have, but it can't be the be all end all.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure you're qualified to talk about wealth in that regard.
No, thank you. I'm working on it.
You're doing well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say wealthy.
Thank you, sir. I
You've
appreciate
gotta,
it. I'm trying.
That's okay. Like
I'll get there.
I want you to be encouraged today. I came here
to encourage me,
to
keep trying. Thank you
just
so
to show
much.
up and say, hey, man, this young brother here.
Yeah, thank you.
He needs some help.
Thank you for coming to my house in
You're
Compton.
welcome. It's not even a big deal.
Yeah.
This movie.
Compton's nice, by the way. Anyway, go ahead.
This movie that's out right now.
The 688.
6888. I actually have a cool story with this because you were studying and writing it one time we were hanging out, and you told me just unfiltered how passionate you were about this project. And what I was explaining to Hector, even on these walls, you have what could be, I mean, some of this stuff could be offensive outside of the fact that you've owned it. I mean, just when I see blackface or when you see some of this old imagery, you have always done things.
That ain't blackface. That's a black woman.
No, that ain't up there on the right.
Okay.
In the middle.
In the middle. Okay.
That's not.
No, you're right. Okay. I'm giving you a hard time.
But what you've always done is reclaim stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're gonna in Wyoming, you've got art of black cowboys. I literally said to you, "What's that?" You're like, "That's a black cowboy." I was like, "No, there's no such thing as black cowboys. Yeah. Cowboys are white and they look like they're from Yellowstone. You need to know your history."
You've been talking to Taylor Sheridan.
And you're like, no, there's actually was a lot of black cowboys.
Know that. You know that, Carl. Stop it.
No, but not to the degree that you laid it out there for me. Having said that, we go to this new endeavor. The title again is
The 6888.
6888. And it's a story about black women in a particular narrative that we would never know about. I don't know if you know this or not, but our elementary school system teaches white and black history a little bit different. We can have a deeper combo about that. I'm not sure you're aware.
Thank you for sharing.
But that's not one of those stories. Tell me about the impetus of this movie.
Well, first of all, I didn't know that there were 855 black women who were in World War II in Europe. And when I found that out, I'm like, wait, what? That not only were in the war, but their efforts really kept the morale of the soldiers up. Because what happened at the time during the Battle of the Bulge and toward the end of the war, there was this backlog of mail. None of the soldiers were getting the mail because they needed the vehicles to bring supplies and things to the front lines. So all of this mail was sitting in hangars, and the morale of the soldiers was at an all-time low. And to have people at home not being able to know if their family members were safe or if they had survived or if they'd been killed. So these women were sent over to get this mail sorted and get to the soldiers. And people think, oh, mail. If you look at it from our modern point of view, like you've got email, you've got text, you've got all these ways to communicate. Well, in 1945, that was the only way to get word to and from when you're in the battle. Yeah, handwritten letters. So these women went over to do it, and they were met with all kinds of obstacles and racism, and it wasn't just going to looking at mail and sending it to like somebody down the street. A lot of it had been molded, eaten in half by vermin, rained out, from the battlefields. You couldn't make out the numbers, and the soldiers were moving around a lot all over the Europe. So they had to come up with a way to find these people, to make these letters legible, to understand, and find these soldiers and get this word to them. And they were given 6 months to do it. And they did it in 90 days with the ingenuity and the things that they had just from their own personal lives. It's really a fantastic, rich story.
I heard a general say, that strategy doesn't win wars, morale does.
Yeah.
And what we fail to recognize that in World War II, if you're not hearing from home, and they actually used to have to regulate what letters that they could receive sometimes, because if you got bad news from home,
Yeah,
it
that was it.
someone could die on your platoon because
Yeah.
you're so out of it.
Yeah.
So these women filled maybe one of the most crucial gaps that led to success. And it's just a phenomenal story.
I would agree. And having an opportunity to meet one of the surviving members, she was 99 years old. So before I even started writing, I flew down to meet with her in Vegas. And I walk in and I go,
What's her name?
Her name, Lena King. The whole movie is centered around her. I think this woman's 99. She's 99 at the time. I think this woman is, what am I going to walk into? What's her mindset going to be? Is she going to be okay? She comes down the stairs, man, head full of hair, makeup done. Mr. Perry, so good to meet you. I was like, wow. She sits down across from me. She's clear as a bell. Her memory was so sharp. And I asked her to tell me about being in the 6888. And the story she told me, I was like, wow. I had the whole movie by the time I left. And I took her what she said and hired a historian and asked him to verify the accuracy. She was dead on. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's something special. There's a difference I've noticed. And I go to a primarily black church now. And some of the elderly women in that church, it's just a different culture with elderly black women that is special.
Yeah.
Like, sharp isn't even the right word. There's
Yeah.
like a level of this acute ability to just say it like it is, that it's beautiful.
Medeas, yeah, they say it like it is.
In the future for you, how have you learned how to stay present and happy? And then I know today you've got 97 things you're working on, if not 98. So my first question is, how on earth do you enjoy any of the present? Because so much great has happened behind you, so much promise is in front of you, but man, you enjoy being. Like that's what if people were to hang out with you, I think they'd be surprised about how still you are, about how much peace you have. Yeah. How do you do that? Because I know people who have no peace and they don't have what you have going on.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it gives me great perspective and it also has made my standard for friendship higher.
Yeah.
Because if I can't get a hold of somebody, I'm like, interesting. I know a guy who's more busy than you are.
Yeah.
He can get back in a more timely manner than you. Why do you think that might be? But yes, please speak to the peace, because I think it's something that everybody needs.
But usually when we've hung out, I've been in the places where I recharge.
Yeah.
Where I get my peace. So you've seen me in those spaces, and Laura has seen me in those spaces, and you haven't seen me in the workspace where it's. I still make it fun. I still keep moving and working, but you've just seen me at the place where it's about the recharge. So yeah, I am light. I am happy there. I am more at peace there. But when I'm at work, it's a little more tense. But people think that I work a lot longer and harder than I do, but what I do is 3 months on, take a month off. 3 months on, take a month off. I want to make sure that I'm keeping some sort of work balance and work-life balance. Yeah.
So when you look out at the future, you're not the type of guy that's ever going to have a twilight season. I talked to my father-in-law, who I love, and he's in his mid-70s, and I just told him, I was like, I don't believe in the twilight season of life at all.
What does that mean?
So often people say he's in his twilight years. It's like almost over for you as your time. Like, I'm in my twilight era. I don't believe has to be the case for everybody. I think that we can continue to have influence until we go meet Jesus. All that to say, I don't think you have any slowdown in you. You are getting more acute with your kind of what you want to do. But what does the future look like for you? Are we talking like, are we going to build like a space city? Are we going to race Elon? Like, have the first black shuttle beat his white shuttle? I don't know. I'm spitballing.
Soul plane shuttle.
You said soul plane shuttle, not me.
Listen, what my hope is and what my plan is. Right now, actually, I'm looking toward the exit. So I'm starting to put a lot of people in place to do what I've done, train them to run the studio and keep it going, so that I have more free time with my son, more free time to travel and meet other people and see the world, do all the things that I haven't been able to do in this 30 years because I was grinding so hard. So, these next 15, it's going to take about 15 years to wind it down properly. Yeah. So I'm looking to what that looks like for me. Yeah.
That's all you're going to give me? There's no.
What else do you want?
I need
There's no space shuttle.
There is.
Not for me. There won't be a Tyler Perry Studios on Mars. that I know of, unless my son decides, hey, he's gonna figure it out. I don't. But hear me. I want you to know. I'll say this seriously. Where I am in life now, Carl, is I have done it. I've got nothing else to prove to anyone or to myself. I am exhausted. This studio is incredible. For some reason, God allowed it to fall on me to do this when so many people wanted it, and I wanted to do it and honor it all the way to the end. So that's my plan. However, just the understanding of what it takes to hold that in the air from month to month, year to year, is tremendous.
Yeah.
And at 55, I am a different person than I was at 40 or 30. I am a person that's going, I really want to look outside of this to see what life is like out there. Yeah. Because you know me, I don't party. I don't go to people's parties. I rarely do things in Hollywood. I'm about the work and more work and more work. So now I just want to maybe, what does it feel like to go and travel the world? Just get on the plane and say, I'm going here, 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 and here, and don't bother me.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm excited for you to find a season that you love.
Yeah,
like that. If you're talking to, I'm gonna let you go after this. Like how I frame that. Like I'm gonna let you go
in my house,
in your own house, sitting in your chairs. When you're looking at somebody, and what I've found doing this podcast journey, we got a lot of awesome, loyal people check in, and what I see is a strain of humility, and I want to break through. If you can encourage people who are at that place of, because once you hit about 25, 30 years old, sometimes people will think the die has been cast, as if if you didn't do what you thought you were gonna do, or your dream didn't come true, and I see a lot of people who are like, I think there's more in me. What's something that you do on a daily basis that gets you to think like you think? Like, I want to steal a thought from you. So your mind is your weapon.
Then or now?
Let's do both.
Then it's going to be okay. You got it. It's going to come together. It's going to come together. And positive, constant reinforcement. I was on Jimmy Kimmel the other night, and he asked to see they put it on the show, my top songs. He put his up, and then we put mine up, and there's top 5. I think there's Beyonce, then there's CeCe Winans, there's Bethel Church. So what I would tell people to do, no matter the age, is put things in your spirit that encourage you. Words are so important. I'm so surprised at the amount of people who listen to songs and don't listen to the lyrics. Yeah. Because those words are being spoken over you. Like, I want to know, what am I saying? What am I singing? What am I dancing to? When you start getting all that stuff in your body, in your soul, in your spirit, and it's encouraging and it's lifting, even if it's not contemporary Christian or gospel, if it's positive and lifting you, you can do it. You can make it.
More of that.
Yes. Put that in your soul and your spirit every day. That's what I was doing. And still to this day, I have to do it. That's why they're at the top of my top 5.
So if people are listening to absolute garbage most of the time, stop acting like you don't understand why you struggle with depression and why you don't feel like you're on top of the world.
Yeah. What are you feeding your spirit? And the social media thing too. Listen to me, brother. That thing is called a feed for a reason. It is. That algorithm is feeding you what it wants you to think. And it bothers me so much that in this country, because when I'm in Europe, this doesn't happen. If I go to a website in Europe, it asks you if you can want to go to the next one. Here in America,
it's going.
It's if you click on one video of a boat, you're going to get 10,000 more videos of a boat. I only wanted to see the one boat.
Tyler, I clicked on one video of a lion looking at a prey.
Yeah.
All I see every day is lions attacking things. So it won't leave me alone.
So imagine if you clicked on something negative.
Correct.
How much more of that you will get.
Yes.
Constantly. Yes. And I get so angry with it. If I'm on YouTube, I'll delete all the history and refresh it and start putting in kittens laughing or all kinds of things. So that but I can be on that page 2 days, and then all of a sudden that negativity will start to find its way to me again. If you're feeding yourself that, I don't know how you win. I don't know how you become successful. I don't know how you stay positive. I don't know how you stay above it. If the music and the algorithms are constantly against you, what are you feeding yourself?
Yeah. On behalf of the many people who cannot thank you for what you do and who you are, thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely, Carl.
I think people are going to be really blessed from just hearing anything from you. But
thank you.
You're loved, prayed for, supported, and I want to honor all the work that you put in to be in a place where you can bring such change. So I think if you work really hard, you can do something special with your life. Don't give up, Tyler Perry.
I won't. Thank you, Carl.
I want to make sure we get that on record, because when you go big time, I don't want you to be like, nobody believed in me.
Carl believed in me.
Carl believed in you.
Carl
Remember
believed
that?
in me.
And I'm standing on business.
Carl believed in me.
You
all
heard it
the
here
way.
first. Tyler Perry is going to make a difference.
Carl believed in me all the way from the top.
Let's go.
All the way from the top.
This has been Lights On with TP.
Lights on.
Thanks for
Lights
these
on.
chairs, by the way. These are coming home with me.
No, not doing it.
They're gold plated and they're coming home. Heck, you heard it.